Welcome to the Secret of His Comfort from the Immeasurably More Library, Christian Classics, where timeless works of Christian faith are brought to life for today's listener. I'm your host, Jackie Wagoner. This devotional reading is drawn from the writings of Hannah Whittle Smith and offered for the weary heart, the anxious soul, and every believer longing to rest more deeply in the faithful love of God. May this chapter quiet your heart, lift your eyes to Christ, and remind you that His comfort is near.
Chapter 3. The God of all comfort. God does not offer His children a small comfort for small troubles only. He reveals Himself as the God of all comfort, comfort large enough for every sorrow, every fear, every burden, and every need. Of all the names by which God reveals Himself, one of the sweetest is this: the God of all comfort. There is no narrowness in that name. There is no limit, no exception, no small print hidden beneath it. God does not call Himself the God of some comfort, or occasional comfort, or comfort only for certain kinds of people and certain kinds of sorrow. He is the God of all comfort. This means that every form of true comfort has its source in Him. Every quieting of the heart, every strengthening of the soul, every lifting of fear, every hope that rises again after grief, every inward assurance that we are not alone, all of it comes from Him. And if this is true, then the Christian life ought to be a comforted life. This does not mean an easy life. It does not mean a life without trouble, pain, grief, disappointment, or loss. The apostle does not say that God prevents all tribulation. He says that God comforts us in all our tribulation. That is a very different thing. God's comfort does not always remove the burden at once. Often He does something deeper. He meets us beneath the burden. He strengthens the soul. He steadies the heart. He brings His own presence so near that even in sorrow there can be peace. But if God is the God of all comfort, why are so many of His children uncomfortable? Why do so many Christians live under a cloud of fear, anxiety, self-condemnation, and unrest? Why do they speak of God's promises with their lips, while their faces, voices, and lives tell a story of discouragement? This is one of the great sorrows of the Christian life. We say we believe in a God of comfort, yet we often live as though comfort were impossible to find. We say He is loving, yet we are afraid of His heart. We say He is faithful, yet we tremble as though He might fail us. We say He is near, yet we go through life as though we were alone. This ought not to be. The world is watching the people of God. Whether we realize it or not, our lives are read by others. We may speak many beautiful words about faith, but what we are often speaks louder than what we say. If our religion makes us gloomy, anxious, hard, fearful, and miserable, others will not easily believe us when we say that God is the God of all comfort. It is not enough to talk about comfort. We must learn to be comforted. A person who has never tasted bread cannot speak very convincingly to the hungry. A person who has never known rest cannot easily guide the weary into rest. And a Christian who has never allowed God to comfort his own soul will find it difficult to carry comfort to others. God comforts us not only for our own sake, but also so that we may comfort others. This is the beautiful order of grace. First, God comforts us. Then, out of the comfort we have received, we are able to comfort those who are in trouble. We are not asked to manufacture comfort out of ourselves. We are not asked to give people empty religious phrases or cheerful words that have never been tested in our own lives. We are invited to receive comfort from God until it becomes something real within us, something we can pass on to another suffering heart. Comfort that has come from God carries the warmth of God with it. It is gentle because it has been received in weakness. It is patient because it has been learned through sorrow. It is humble because it knows it did not create itself. It is powerful because it comes from Him. This is why the Christian's own experience of God's comfort matters so deeply. We cannot give what we have never received. We cannot convincingly proclaim a comforting God while refusing to be comforted by Him ourselves. And yet many believers do exactly this. They seem almost afraid to be comforted. They imagine that anxiety is a sign of seriousness, that gloom is a form of humility, and that spiritual heaviness somehow honors God more than peace. But it does not honor a physician when his patients refuse to be healed. It does not honor a shepherd when the sheep will not let themselves be cared for. It does not honor a father when his children live as though his love were uncertain and his house unsafe. God is glorified when His children trust Him enough to be comforted. To be comforted by God is not carelessness. It is not pretending trouble does not exist. It is not shallow happiness or forced cheerfulness. True comfort looks sorrow in the face and still says, God is here. It is the deep assurance that our lives are held by one whose wisdom cannot fail, whose love cannot change, and whose grace is sufficient for every need. The comfort of God is not fragile. It does not depend on perfect circumstances. It is not destroyed by bad news, difficult duties, physical weakness, or uncertain futures. It rests on something far more stable than outward conditions. It rests on God Himself. This is why His comfort can reach every kind of tribulation. There is comfort for grief because God is the Father of mercies. There is comfort for fear because God is our refuge and strength. There is comfort for guilt because God is rich in forgiveness. There is comfort for weakness because His strength is made perfect there. There is comfort for loneliness because He has promised never to leave nor forsake His own. There is comfort for uncertainty because He knows the end from the beginning. There is comfort for disappointment because He works all things according to His wise and loving purpose. There is comfort for death itself because Christ has conquered the grave. No trial is outside the reach of this name, the God of all comfort. But we must not think of this comfort as something vague or distant. God does not merely send comfort as one might send a message from far away. He Himself is the comfort. His presence is comfort. His love is comfort. His promises are comfort. His faithfulness is comfort. His fatherly care is comfort. His nearness is comfort. Many Christians seek comfort first in changed circumstances. They think, if only this trouble were removed, then I would be at peace. If only this person changed. If only this illness ended. If only this burden lifted. If only the future became clear. Then I could be comforted. But God offers something better than comfort that waits for circumstances to improve. He offers Himself. And when the soul learns to find comfort in God Himself, it discovers a comfort that can live even in the middle of trouble. This is the secret. The Christian's comfort is not that nothing painful will happen. The Christian's comfort is that nothing painful can separate us from the love, presence, and care of God. This does not mean we will always feel comfort immediately. Some sorrows are deep, some wounds ache for a long time, some fears return again and again. God is tender with our weakness. He does not scold the bruised reed or despise the trembling heart, but He does invite us to bring every sorrow to Him. Not some sorrows, not respectable sorrows only, not spiritual sorrows only, every sorrow. There is no pain too small for His compassion, and no pain too great for His power. We often make the mistake of dividing our lives into things we think are worthy of God's attention and things we think are too ordinary, too personal, or too small. But the God of all comfort is concerned with all that concerns His children. A mother does not say to her child, "That hurt is too small for me to notice." Love notices. Love bends down. Love cares about the tear because it cares about the child. And God's love is greater than the best human love. If he numbers the hairs of our head, then surely he knows the burdens of our hearts. If not even a sparrow falls unnoticed by him, then surely no grief of his child is overlooked. We do not honor God by keeping our troubles away from him. We honor him by bringing them. We honor him by believing that his heart is tender enough, his hands strong enough, and his wisdom perfect enough for all that burdens us. Still, some may say, "But I do not feel comforted." Then begin where faith always begins, with what God has said. He has said he is the God of all comfort. Believe this before you feel it. Bring your heart to him because his word says he is willing. Trust his name even while your emotions are still unsettled. Feelings often follow faith slowly. The child may still tremble even while held safely in the Father's arms. The frightened traveler may still feel afraid even after entering the strong shelter. The storm may still be loud even when the house is secure. So do not measure God's comfort only by the quietness of your emotions. Measure it by the truth of his character. He is the God of all comfort, whether you feel comforted yet or not. He is the Father of mercies, whether your heart is still heavy or not. He is near whether your soul can sense his nearness or not. Faith receives what feeling has not yet learned to enjoy. And as we continue to turn toward him, his comfort begins to shape us. It teaches us to look at life differently. It teaches us that we are not abandoned in our trials. It teaches us that God's love is not absent when life is hard. It teaches us that sorrow is not the final word. God is. Then, little by little, comfort becomes more than a doctrine. It becomes our lived experience. We begin to know, not merely to say, that God is faithful. We begin to understand, not merely to repeat, that his grace is sufficient. We begin to carry within us a quiet strength that could only have come from him. And then, wonderfully, we become comforters. Not because we have all the answers, not because we can explain every sorrow, not because we know how every story will unfold, but because we have been comforted by God, and something of his comfort has entered us. The most helpful comforters are often those who have suffered and found God faithful in the suffering. They do not speak lightly. They do not offer quick answers to deep wounds. They do not pretend sorrow is simple, but they carry the fragrance of having been with God in the dark. Such comfort is a gift to the world. And this is part of God's purpose. He comforts us so that his comfort may flow through us to others. A comforted Christian becomes a living witness to the heart of God. The world does not need merely to hear that God is comforting. It needs to see what his comfort looks like in a human life. It needs to see peace that does not depend on ease. It needs to see hope that survives disappointment. It needs to see tenderness born out of trial. It needs to see joy that is deeper than circumstances. It needs to see people who can weep and still trust. This is not something we can produce by determination. It comes as we receive the comfort God is always ready to give. So let us not be content to live uncomforted lives while belonging to the God of all comfort. Let us not speak of his promises while refusing to rest in them. Let us not carry our religion like a burden when Christ has come to give rest to our souls. Let us come to him with every fear, every grief, every anxiety, every disappointment, every weakness, and every need. Let us come honestly, without pretending to be stronger than we are. Let us come expecting mercy, because he has called himself the Father of mercies. And let us believe that his comfort is enough for today, enough for the trial we understand. Enough for the trial we cannot understand, enough for the sorrow that can be spoken, enough for the sorrow too deep for words, enough for life, enough for death, enough for all things. For he is not merely a God who sometimes comforts. He is not merely a God who offers comfort from a distance. He is not merely a God who comforts others, but may forget us. He is the God of all comfort. and those who know him as such can learn, even in tribulation, to be at peace. Closing reflection. The heart of this chapter is that God's comfort has no limit. He comforts his children in their troubles, and then he makes them able to carry that same comfort to others. A comforted Christian becomes a living testimony that God is exactly who he says he is. Prayer. Lord, you are the God of all comfort. Teach me not only to speak of your comfort, but to receive it. Bring every anxious, sorrowful, restless place in me under the shelter of your love. Help me stop measuring your care by my circumstances or my feelings. Let me know you as the Father of mercies, near to me in every trouble. Comfort me with your presence, your promises, your faithfulness, and your unchanging heart. And as you comfort me, make me gentle and ready to comfort others with the comfort I have received from you. Amen.
Thank you for listening to The Secret of His Comfort from the Immeasurably More Library, Christian Classics. We pray this chapter has encouraged you and drawn your heart closer to Christ. Until next time, may you continue to discover the immeasurably more that God has for you.